Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast, trade deadline edition. I'm Adam Emmert. I'm joined by my good buddy, Mr. Phil, the protector from What If. Phil, we just watched the trade deadline come and go. We saw one move for wide receiver Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints for a 2026 4th and 5th reportedly. How did that hit you out of the gate? How are you feeling about this move?
Well, I'm stoked about it in that I just this Sunday, and it's been a few times, I've told my boys or different people, I'd like us to get Rashid Shaheed. He would fit us pretty well. But this Sunday, I was like, I'd still kind of like us to go get that a legit wide receiver too. And then Torrey Horton had a big day, of course, Sunday night. So I was like, that's probably not going to happen. I heard whispers again, and I got to thinking, maybe we should go in another direction. But here's what I thought, Adam. I shouldn't change everything that I feel about our lack of a dynamic wide receiver too because of a big game against the worst pass defense I've seen in some time. Not just their coverage against wide receiver twos, their pass rush was garbage. And so we probably, what we've got out of Horton up until this week should help us consider a little bit more. And Kupp, by the way, and I know you're going to talk about him. What we got about Horton and Kupp should really help us consider how we feel about the Shaheed trade, I think, rather than what we saw against the Commanders.
So you're talking a little bit about the Commanders and the idea of facing a poor secondary and having Horton have a big day. And then also the lack of a pass rush because the pass rush isn't great for the Commanders.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe they didn't target guard as much as receiver because they didn't face a big pass rush this last game? Bradford looked decent and the pass protection looked good. Is that part of it? Or do you think maybe they just didn't have a guard available that they were able to make a deal for?
That's way more what it is. I mean, if you look historically, inside offensive linemen being traded, especially midseason, that's about as rare as any endangered species you're going to look for out there, Adam. I'm sure if there was a solid guard that a team was, one of these fire sale teams was looking to offload, I'm sure that Schneider gave them a call, even if he thought there was any kind of spark that it was worth having a conversation. I'm sure he had conversations on all those. My guess, Adam, is he did not rank wide receiver 2 like way above offensive guard. It was like, this is a wide receiver 2 that fits our team great, and they are willing to offload him at a price I am comfortable with. It's way more of that than just, oh no, we wanted wide receiver more than guard. I don't think that's it.
Yeah, okay, because it does feel a little bit like, all right, fine. Like, I don't really want to deal with guard. I don't like trading assets for guards. I don't like paying guards, but I do like going out and paying guys wide receiver money, as he did with Kupp this last offseason. And I do think that it's an interesting move in terms of what it means for Kupp going forward. Do you think this signals more of a white flag on a below mediocre season so far for Kupp? Or is this more a reflection of Derek Young hurt, Jake Bobo hurt, Kupp hurt? And so you're looking at that going, hey, maybe we just need extra wide receiver help for depth.
There's a few things there in what you're saying. And what I would say, Adam, is Kupp and Shaheed are very different players at this point in their career and forever. They're just different players. Kupp is a fantastic blocking wide receiver that should not be a wide receiver 2 at this stage of his career, given his athletic ability. Does that mean he was overpaid a little bit this offseason? Well, possibly. You and I both kind of thought that. What was our odds of him playing every game this year when you and I were talking early on, Adam? It was like 0.0001. We just didn't expect that for one. For also, when Shaheed's on the field, that provides something totally different than Kupp. Kupp being on the field doesn't cause a team to feel like I need to have 2 safeties high. He's not. The way Kupp opens up the run game is that he's a good blocker, but it doesn't give space for somebody like K9 by moving another safety back because you got to watch JSN on one side and a legit wide receiver 2 kill you guy on the other side. That's not what Kupp offers. So I think it's that he offers different things. The injuries, the guys you're talking about, they're all somebody that he's different than. How do you feel, Adam? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I've got my own thoughts, but as far as an upgrade getting us to the Super Bowl this year and having a chance of winning the Super Bowl this year, which we're certainly one of the handful of teams that has a shot at it, how would you say Shaheed ups that in comparison to Horton trying to be our wide receiver too?
It's an interesting question because I think going into the trade deadline, we look at this and we go, probably the most impactful trade that you could make would be for a guard. The second most impactful trade that you could make, that comes down to edge and wide receiver probably at that point. And I would give the edge
maybe
to
linebacker
edge.
if Ernest isn't okay. Maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident that Ernest is going to be all right. But you can find linebacker. People are discarding linebackers all the time. Like you can find somebody to come in and play a little bit. Shoot, Patrick O'Connell can come in and play a little bit. He's not a bad player. So I think there was answers there. So I probably would have gone right guard, edge, and then maybe wide receiver. Yeah. At this point, I think it does increase the odds for the Seahawks going to the Super Bowl because I think he's a much better receiver at this point in his career with what he can do in comparison to Kupp, with Horton emerging, and he can remain your WR3 at this point. But Shaheed has basically doubled up Cooper on all of his stats throughout this part of the year, and that's with a worse offense, a worse offensive line, a worse quarterback, all that around him, and he's still putting up good numbers. He had over 40 catches and over 400 yards receiving to this point.
Yep. 44 for 499. 44 for 499. And a long of 87 where he almost hit 22 miles an hour.
Yeah. And when we went into the Saints game, Phil, I was singing the praises of Shaheed because I really like him as a player. So I think there's a few things that can be true here. One, I think that this immediately helps the wide receiver room like next week because he has familiar with Kubiak's system and all of that. I think the second thing is that it does really help their chances going deeper into this season, whether that's a deep playoff run or however you want to look at that. Because now if you get Horton, Shaheed, and JSN on the field at the same time, if you're running 11 personnel, then that's a crap ton of speed that you have to deal with out there. That's a scary group at that point. And also, I think Shaheed can step in and do a lot of the Kupp things, maybe not as good as a blocker, but in terms of playing in the slot, he's played over 40% of his snaps in the slot this year. So it's not like he's just an outside guy either. So I think he's a fantastic addition. I think it's a little bit of JSN insurance if you're worried about him going down as well. So, and I think the third thing that can be true is that this kind of cements the signing of Kupp in the offseason as just a bad signing. I mean, the amount of money that they paid him, you could have paid a guard. Then still gone out and found this receiver later on, again, here before the trade deadline, or drafted another guy or something like that. And I think it kind of cements that Kupp is either really hurt or he's hurt enough to where he's going to miss a game or two and they just haven't been sold. And they're like, yeah, we're fine. And then also with Shaheed being traded for, this is the last year of his deal. So you give up a fourth and a fifth, which is a little higher than I'd like, to be honest. If you're giving that up, I'm guessing you're not letting him walk out the door at the end of the year. So you're going to have to pay him going into next year. And if you're doing that, then this de facto 1 year deal for Kupp, it'll be just that. It'll be just 1 year and you let him walk. So I think all of those things can be true at once.
I hear a lot of people talk about how great Kupp is for JSN, how great he is for the young wide receivers, his mentality, the effort he shows in all the preparation. I have generally thought, I mean, anybody can do that, but maybe it's true. I'll give that a chance because respectable people I've heard say that. He doesn't look, anybody that's been at these practices, all of the different reporters or content creators that cover, they've never felt like Kupp looked dynamic, and we see that in the games in practice, but they all, when they get a chance, they do speak to the difference he makes for the mentality and for the culture. And I have to say, for a fifth round pick, Horton's having a good start, and JSN has had a giant leap this year. So if Kupp has any responsibility to that, the money's worth it, especially what we're getting out of JSN. And I like him in the run game. He's not a wide receiver too. So I said all that to say this. We have not had a scary wide receiver 2 this year. JSN has been wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, and he's got good enough numbers to be both of those. But I think that hurts our run game. I really think that has hurt our run game. You just have to worry about one guy. K9's the kind of guy that likes some space, and all these 8-man boxes, I just don't think they're ideal for him. And so, is the Kupp a bad signing? You might be right. But if I told you JSN didn't have the year he had, or even Darnold, I heard Kupp has an impact on Darnold. Then I'd say that's.
Oh, sure. I heard Kupp had an impact on the front office. I heard Kupp had an impact in the equipment room. I heard he had an impact like parking cars early before the game. I heard that he solved world peace while he was in the VMAC too.
Yeah.
I guess I just get a little tired of the well Cooper came in and he's just made everything 17 levels better by just being Cooper Kupp.
Yeah. I usually think just like you were thinking right now, Adam. But I wanted to throw that in there to be the counterbalance, because if he's not been that, then you're totally right. If you go for on-field receiving production and you take the rest off, this has not been a good signing. And we should have spent the money on a guard. But MVS, if he was there instead of Kupp, I think we're a worse team. I think I would at least give him that. I don't think our team would have been as good if we had just paid MVS and not paid Kupp. I think he has brought something, just because all the players keep saying it about him. So there has to be something there.
I'm not saying he is a bust. And to Amy, my sister from another mother, she's saying that Kupp was not a bad signing, in that my Kupp hate is a little over the top. So let's say if I take my personal feelings out of the sports hate for Kupp, 24 receptions for 200 odd some yards, woo, for $15 million in comparison to the impact that a right guard would have made for this team. I don't think there's any logical debate as to which would be a better use of the dollars than, signing an aging wide receiver who hasn't been healthy in 4 years, who's been on the decline, who can't get any separation. Like, all those things are facts and they're indisputable. So, and then I put my sports hate on top of it, and it just cements it for me. Like, I'm good with Kupp being demoted with the trade here for Shaheed. I think it is going to make an improvement for the offense as a whole.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I was with you on all those points, except for I've always liked Cooper Kupp. He's been one of the guys, but he's I live in Spokane. He's an Eastern Washington stud. I like his family. There's so many things I like about who he is. I always wished he wasn't on the Rams. So for all the person reasons, I'm glad he's here. But I agreed before the signing, I don't know what the man still has to offer, and I don't think he's going to play a whole season, and I was not seeing separation last year. So for all those on-the-field reasons, I didn't think it was a great signing either. I'm just trying to bring up the other things that he does. But I will say this, as much as I love him in the run game blocking, I kind of think having a deep threat will be more helpful for our run game than a receiver that allows someone to stay in the box and just happens to block well. I kind of am excited to have a legit second receiver to see how this opens up the run game.
I think that's an excellent point, Phil. And that kind of leads us to Rick Darcy down here. I saw him taking a victory lap in one of the other videos because his comment here, how do you like me now, Adam? Incessant that we needed Shaheed or Waddle to be a real Super Bowl contender. Annoyed y'all, but this is what we needed. Kupp is more coach than player, but now we are explosive. And so, Rick, yes, definitely take your victory lap, bud. It's fun being right, and that's really cool, man. Congratulations on that. But Rick would agree with you, Phil, and I think I do as well. Having Shaheed being able to stretch the field and be that second vertical threat that we hadn't had consistently out there is going to help with the percentages of heavy boxes that the Seahawks have been facing all year long. Because at some point, you're going to have to respect all that speed out on the field. Now, what I hope it doesn't do is take us and put us into 11 personnel more often rather than sticking in the land of 12 or 22 or 13 personnel where we have the 2-3 tight ends on the field and maybe a fullback.
Yeah, we do pass good out of 12, which is what's interesting. We pass good out of 21. Um, I think maybe because we find good matchups that way. I haven't felt like our run game is good when we put in the big guys because it lets the other team keep all the big guys in there. And I'm just maybe it's just because it's Canine. He does not seem like the kind of running back that you want to have all loaded up. I feel like he's more Barry than Jim Brown. Like he's more
Yeah,
let's
that's
spread it
fair.
out and let's let him find some spaces where he can make guys lose their footing. So I'm not against having some 11 with K9 out there because I think that's kind of fits him a little bit.
That could fit him a little bit. It could help him break some tendencies too, as long as they don't go overboard with it. But
Yeah.
big shout out to Ryan911, our live executive producer, with the $9.99 super chat. He says, "Go Hawks!" And I think a lot of us are pretty fired up after this trade because Shaheed is a legit weapon and somebody that I think definitely improves wide receiver room considering all the injuries. But the cost of a fourth and a fifth, Phil. How does that hit you? Do you feel like they got value here, or was that too much, too little? What do you think?
I thought it was about what I would have expected. I got a 45 over there, so I guess that's a fourth and a fifth going with Easley's number. So maybe it was just all circled back around to being just right for me. But fourth and the fifths are lottery picks. We get good ones. We get ones that aren't so great. So the odds are we probably lose a player that might push for a starting position. We've had some. I like how people like to run down the day 3 picks and say all the good ones. Well, when you get 4 to 5 day 3 picks for 15 years, guess what? You're going to have some good ones, but you're going to have a lot of guys that are just depth and backup. Shaheed is not depth and backup. He's an actual difference maker. He's going to extend the amount of points we're able to score per game. He's going to open things up. And by the way, Adam, last I checked, those 4th and 5th round picks are for next year's team. This year, we have a team that is one of those that are competing for a Super Bowl. And so I wanted something to be done to increase our odds of getting to and even winning the Super Bowl and holding on to a 4th and 5th round pick. We're not going to do that for us for this year.
Well, I agree. I definitely think that it raises the ceiling of this team because defensively they've been ultra consistent. Offensively is where it's been a little bit more up and down. But to Reed's comment here on the screen, my 8-year-old said it should have been a 6 and a 7. I felt like this was a little bit of an overpay. I do. Yep. This felt more like a straight up or like a 4th and a 7th or something like that. I did see in the comments here that somebody had something about DJ Nichols here did. He said that he had heard that we get a 4th round pick in compensation if Shaheed walks. So the comp pick thing, that's always hard to
maybe that's the condition that people are trying to figure out is, if we don't sign him, he's a free agent. And so we'll get a 4th back. Now he would have to make a certain amount, but the expectation is that he's going to get into that 12, 14 million a year if he has a good season for us. So we probably get a comp pick.
I guess I'm seeing in the comments here that apparently I'm missing some joke. How is counting 6 to 7 a joke? I know. I mean, if I went 2-3, is that hilarious too?
It's
maybe 22-27. Maybe it should be 21-22. 22 in honor of
I like
Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah. I like 4 or 5.
Yeah. So a 4th and a 5th feels like it's a little steep. Now, let's say you don't get that 4th compensation pick. If he walks at the end of this, is it then an overpay in your eyes, or do they have to be able to re-sign him, Phil, for it to be something that's worth it?
Well, it comes out similar if what they're saying is correct, that we get a 4th round compensatory, but that would be a 2027 pick, of course. So that backs off the what that's worth. It would end up being a 5th round pick if we don't sign him. That seems worth it if he helps us this year. If we don't sign him and we win the Super Bowl, Adam, I'm not going to miss those picks next year. I'll be celebrating during the draft that we are Super Bowl champions. If, let's say this, JSN, heaven forbid, goes down and gets hurt for a while, we would have had nobody. Our offense would be toast if we had not picked up So this kind of protects and keeps us. So it not only raises our ceiling, I think it also protects the floor of how bad we might lose if we have to miss a few games of JSN. Now, I will also say this: JSN's still the most important player, probably on our team. In that, if he's out, we're not going to the Super Bowl. I just don't see it. But at least Shaheed gives us a little bit of a chance. I think we should sign him if he proves that he's got good chemistry with Darnold. I think get it done. We've got the space for it. Why wouldn't you want a wide receiver too, unless you're just sure Horton's going to take another step next year and then you just let it go? But I really believe that Schneider's doing this because he thinks it increases our chance this year of getting to the Super Bowl. And that's reason enough to go a 4th and a 5th for me.
Yeah, and I do agree with you about the idea of we're close enough to be thinking Super Bowl a little bit, right? Like not to be one of those people that like prematurely, like the Bengals win a game finally and they're like, hey, we're going to the Super Bowl. None of that nonsense, but like cautiously optimistic that we have as good of a chance as about anybody in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl.
That's
so
not
you
messing
take a
around.
risk.
That's legit. Like that, you can say that was a serious straight face. Look at all the other teams. We have as good a shot as any of them. It's not a goofy thing to say. Sorry.
Exactly. And I'm always hesitant to go there until we're really concerned or really convinced of it. But I do think we're there, and you needed to make a move to try to give yourself that little bit of an edge to put you over the top. And I think Shaheed could be that. I do think that you would want to re-sign him at this point if he looks good throughout the rest of the year.
Sure.
But does that cause you concern that then maybe they're not going to be able to re-sign maybe like a Mafe or Reek or whoever else is coming up to here this next year?
Yeah, we're not going to sign all of them anyway. I think that's a given. And we got to figure out which guy's worthy of a second contract, but let them compete it out. I'd rather have too many choices than not enough choices. People get worried about, I got all these great players. How are we going to sign them? I'm like, that's a good thing.
Love
Imagine
that problem.
being the Browns where you can't think of who to extend. I like the fact that we might have to decide between the best and the good instead of the bad. And well, I guess we'll go ahead and sign this guy. It's ridiculous to be bummed that we have so many options to choose from. If it turns out that Maffe's not worthy of another contract, then let's let him go somewhere and get compensated for it. I would have felt the same way if we had traded him for a pass rusher, and if we'd thrown in a pick and got one of those difference-making pass rushers, I'd be fine because I think that ups our chances this year. This year is worth going for it. I think all Hawk fans need to understand we are good enough. This year is worth going for it. And if our fear is that we don't have the cap space for all these great players, that's the wrong thing to be afraid of. That's something to be excited about.
Another aspect of the Shaheed trade here that I actually like quite a bit now that I let this kind of marinate a little bit longer since it's gone down. I think it really does help for them to go into the playoffs, make their push, and then be able to really evaluate Sam Darnold's play when the money's on the line and the stakes are high and all of that. Because, great year with Minnesota last year. The one really bad game out of him, the bad playoff game, which is tough. I don't know that I can put that on him, but the Lions game, that was on him when things got big. We've seen him in some bigger moments in the fourth quarter. Maybe not be as clean as we had hoped, but still hoping for that next step. So when we get to the playoffs this year and Darnold gets to ball out and do what he does, if he doesn't perform well, having Shaheed out there with JSN and all the other weapons and, the improved offensive line this year, the improved offensive coordinator in Kubiak and all that, there's not a lot of excuses left over to be like, oh, well, Darnold didn't have anybody outside of JSN, so what was he supposed to do? Darnold didn't have this, Darnold didn't have that. So it allows you to evaluate him in crunch time if it doesn't go well and be able to see if it was really just him or the situation around him. Or the flip side of that is the Shaheed thing really works out great. That makes him even more dynamic. It loosens up the run game because they're pushing the safeties down the field because they have no choice. And all of a sudden, this offense takes it to an even another level, and Darnold rips it up through the playoffs and takes us on a run. So you might as well support him and give him everything he needs because he's not one of the top 3 guys, right? Top 4 guys.
Yeah.
But he's that next tier of guy, the Goffs, the Bakers, those of the world where you're like, I can see a Super Bowl being won by one of those guys, but they have to have things around them working correctly.
Yeah, I'm ready to expect Darnold to do well. The way he's playing, I'm ready to expect him to do well. But you're right. The only thing we don't have that's like very effective. I'd say it's effective, and you probably know where I'm going. It's effective because it keeps defense honest. It's not changing the game in a positive way. In fact, our EPA on our run game is negative. Like our overall run plays, when we run the ball, we are not adding points on odds wise. We are lessening our chance to get points. So if we can get that around 0, to where our run game is something that they actually have to fear, then there's really no excuses left. But I struggle to even give that excuse to Sam because he's already been very successful against a variety of defenses with this run game. And so if it falls apart in the playoffs, there will only be two things: either Sam choked or Clint choked. I mean, that's the two options. There'll be nobody else to put the blame on. It will be other than those two. If we can't score and move the ball, it will have to be Clint or Sam. And it seems right now, unless someone solves them, I'm not expecting them to fall apart.
Yeah, I think it's the last big mystery of this season to a degree, other than maybe playoff seeding and whether or not we're able to take down the Rams and take the division. But I think everybody feels pretty confident that we're making the playoffs. And then if we do, if we were to not make the push that we're hoping for, I like how we're both like, oh, yeah, the defense will be great. I'm not worried about that. If for some reason we don't go far, it's because of the offense. We'll be pointing at either Sam or Clint. But also, too, we might be raising our glasses to Sam and Clint when it's all said and done. And they don't have to win a chip for me to be excited about what happens here in the postseason, too. Just be, hyper competitive. Maybe if you could get as far as an NFC Championship game, I'd be thrilled. And I think this helps.
I do have one concern with the defense, and it's one that I was thinking about today, as I believe John might have been looking for chances to really boost the defense just to one more level. I feel confident Mike's going to run a good defense. I feel confident that whoever he puts in there, it seems like whether it's Okada, you just pick a guy and he finds a way to make him be effective. Here's what we haven't seen. Just as we've not seen Darnold go into the playoffs in the big moments and win, what we haven't seen yet, and we're going to get a chance here in 2 weeks, how this defense handles top quarterbacks. Because Baker, he set his protections. He saw what was coming. We weren't able to get at him. Stafford is another one like that. He's got a sense of, okay, the rush is here. The openings are here. He already in his mind knows who might be open, where the difficulty is to move his players around and set up the protection. Can we look just as dominant against one of these top level quarterbacks? Once we prove that, then our defense has made me feel more like, okay, now we can go. Let's get to the Rams game before I'm just settled on the fact that our defense has got it all handled.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think going into last week, if we were looking at it from a preseason perspective, we'd see Jaden Daniels on the schedule and be like, there's a top level quarterback.
Yeah.
That, the defense can prove it against.
Look at his targets this week. It was really rough.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing, but the Rams game will be interesting. I do keep seeing a lot of comments on other videos and stuff as I'm consuming Seahawks content being like, this is all fine and dandy, but wake me when we play the Rams and we do well against it.
Stafford, yeah.
I can understand that sentiment. Outside of Stafford, Goff, and Hurts, like who are the elite quarterbacks in the NFC that you
Baker
don't think
Stafford.
that they can stack them?
Baker and Stafford are the ones I'm concerned about. They're the ones that know how to solve protection and anticipate holes in defenses. Right now, they're the guys in the zone. You watch those guys, they're playing chess while other quarterbacks are still figuring out checkers against good pass rushes. So those are the two that our defense needs to prove it against. I can't think of another one. Maybe I'm overlooking one, but Love's not playing great.
No.
Like, who am I missing?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, that's kind of why I asked. And I think one of the other interesting parts about the trade deadline, we talk about what did happen with the Rashid Shaheed trade, but the things that didn't happen, we heard Boye Mafe's name bantied about quite a bit. We heard Reek's name obviously bantied about a ton in terms of them possibly being traded. And I think this shows that John Schneider looked at those two players compared to the offers that they were getting, being like, they offer far more value for us for the remainder of this season to take on the top 10 or top tier quarterbacks and top tier offenses that you're talking about, Phil. And they said, nope, let's keep those guys in house. Let's make a run this year. And so by doing that, maybe it increases the odds of making it a tough day for the Stafford and the Bakers of the world.
Yeah. Flip it around. Would you have been excited if we got a 4th and a 5th for Mafe or a 4th and a 5th for Woolen, knowing our defense?
No, I was looking at both of those in terms of more player trades. Like if you could have included him in a Hendrickson deal of some kind or a Max Crosby deal like Thomas is talking about here on the screen. His comment is, I'd rather have Crosby or Hendrickson over Shaheed. But if he changes the offense right away, I'm for it. And I get it, man. Like, I think a lot of us wanted to take what we do really well, the defense, and just make it elite. And I think John looked at it and said, hey, we can make this offense more complementary. And I think that's maybe, you mentioned, Phil, before we got on, Seahawks being talked about as maybe towards the top of a lot of the power rankings. This might be the most complete team in football at this point. And adding Shaheed is a big deal.
That's why we are one of the most complete teams. I don't know if there's a more complete team. It's us and the Rams. It's one of us. As far as complete teams, I think our defense is probably slightly more reliable than theirs, if I had to guess. Their quarterback has more proven, more experience than us, so that's their advantage. Run game versus run game, theirs is a tiny bit more effective, but our passing game is ranked better. DVOA ranks us better. So that us and the Rams are the two complete teams, if I had to guess. I only reason I brought up a 4th and a 5th is that's the kind of thing, if we had traded Woolen and Mafe and not got a player, that's probably the best you're going to get on a guy on the last year of his deal who's a really good starter in this league. Has, in fact, those guys, not Mafe, but Woolen has been a Pro Bowler. He's got certainly Pro Bowl ceiling. Mafe probably doesn't, but he's a pass rusher. It's the second most important position in football. So him getting a 4th or a 5th might have been possible, but I was with you. If we traded Mafe, I wanted it to be for Hendrickson and Crosby, and I wanted, I'd be willing to throw in something big to get that, because those guys are guys that end the game in the 4th quarter for you. We probably don't have that on the outside yet. What do you think? Since we didn't get Hendrickson or Crosby, those are the guys that a lot of us wanted. Do we have a guy on the outside that can stop a quarterback and end the game like a Bosa does, right?
We do, and his name is Leonard Williams.
In the inside,
you don't have to be an edge player to be that guy, right? So I actually feel pretty confident in the pass rush. But it's interesting, the snail here in the comments. It was just up here a second ago, talking about Pete killing the deal for Crosby. Amy Holmes here in the chat reiterating that and saying that John tried. He tried really, really hard. I do get a little tired of John tried. We talked about it a lot this offseason. But
that's
with
usually
that said,
a guard that John tried, right? He
exactly. Yeah, he didn't even try, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Pete killing the deal. Like, how does that hit you, Phil? Pete not doing us any favors. He doesn't want to see us doing any better, any more success coming Coach Mike's way as he replaced him. Pete didn't want to see that.
I guess not. But, I mean, maybe Pete feels like he doesn't have a long-term opportunity there, because if you're going to get 2 first-rounders in Mafe or whatever it is, a 1st and a 2nd in Mafe, that's a great thing to do for your future when Max is, 29 years old? Pete's in it for right now. Gino's in it for right now. They're toward the end of their career, likely, so maybe that didn't make a lot of sense for him, but it's, from the Raiders' standpoint, could have been a good thing. Now, they didn't want to give up their favorite. He's the most beloved player on the team. So people come to the game to watch Max. If Max is gone, what are you really cheering for in Oakland? So that's a hard sell to your fans. So I could see it going anyway. I'm glad John tried.
Yeah. Hey, look, in the comments here, Amy being like, I know, but it was a big deal. William saying, would you rather John didn't try? And it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that specifically with the guard conversation this offseason, it's like,
of course.
okay, well, it's been at least 8 years in a row that I hear John tried and like nothing happened. And I'm just getting tired of it as an excuse. In this case, I don't hold it against John for not being able to go out and make Pete want to trade Max Crosby to his former team. I don't know that that's something that I can hold his feet to the fire for. It doesn't seem very fair. That's for sure.
I would rather have a GM that tries but doesn't do something stupid just because that's what it costs. Look at this roster. It's a pretty good roster.
Colts? I mean, what, trading 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner? Get out of here.
Yeah.
I would not be excited about that.
Like if you walk into a room and you're not leaving that until you get what you want, that's not a great deal maker, right? If you've decided ahead, I'm going to get what I want. Pick any area of business, pick fantasy football where you can place a certain amount on a player. If you predetermine, no matter what, I'm getting this, that's not wise. You do stupid things and you get taken advantage of. So yeah, I'm with you on the John tried for guard. I wish he would have tried with more, but I'm also glad that most of the time, other than the Max Unger situation, most of the time, John gets out of a lot of deals. He's probably got out of a whole lot of bad deals that we don't know about.
Oh, 1,000%. And that, to your point, it's what a good negotiator does. You don't walk in looking to buy a car and being like, I'm walking out the door with this car no matter what.
You lose.
You have to be 1,000% comfortable knowing there's 1,000 Jeeps in the sea. I'll find another Jeep down the road or whatever it is you're looking for, right? So I'm sure John kicked the tires on some guards here and did his due diligence. Couldn't get it done, but hit one of the top 3 things that we needed here at the trade deadline. And I think got a quality player on top of that. As I said before, I've liked Shaheed's game in New Orleans for the last couple of years. And honestly, replacing, a Big Sky Conference wide receiver at WR2 with another Big Sky Conference, younger, better, faster, Big Sky receiver at WR2 from Weber State. I like it. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that was a place that needed upgraded. If you're going to say what of our starters needs upgraded, guard was the top one, but wide receiver too is a starter. That's a starter, and it needed upgraded. We did not have a legit wide receiver 2 on this team. I'm hoping, and I think there's a chance, I'm hoping that this does unlock the run game just enough. Someone asked earlier about JSN. I want to get back to that. Will this help? Will this help JSN have a better chance of breaking the all-time receiving record? Will he get to 2,000 because of Shaheed? Or Adam, would you say there's now less chance because now Sam has someone else to gain his attention?
Oh, that's actually a really difficult question because I do think he's going to be targeted more than either Kupp or Horton was as the second receiver. And then there's also the aspect that you've been talking about this entire pod about it helping the run game in the long term. And maybe then, the run
that just keeps us on the field
pretty
more.
Good.
Yeah.
It just keeps us on the field more. So more opportunities. I'm going to go with this helps JSN because it's going to make it so they can't double him quite as often. It's going to make it so that the run game's a little bit more effective, which means more opportunities, less 3 and outs. It's going to be a net positive for JSN going forward.
Better play action because they'll not bite on the play action, and then we'll burn them with either JSN or Shaheed. Then they do bite on the play action, and then now we have JSN with one guy, which means he's wide open, and maybe get us some even more explosive plays. Someone said earlier, now we can be explosive. I was like,
oh, I think Barry was having some sarcastic fun. Yeah.
Let's not say now we can be explosive because we're very explosive. Now we can be more explosive, and hopefully, yes, now we can actually be explosive in the run game here and there, and we can get some K9 gifts going in our Discord because he's tearing up some open spaces. That's what I'm hoping.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun going forward. And I hope the 200 of you join us live here think that this is going to be fun going forward and that you're fired up for this deal because I do think that it's going to be an upgrade. If you're into the Shaheed trade, hit like. If you think we're winning the Super Bowl, hit subscribe. You can do it. It's only going to help the Hawkra, and it's going to increase the odds 3 times as more as bringing Shaheed in here at the trade deadline. So do your part, and we appreciate it in advance. But Phil, This is exciting. It's been an exciting season. Things have been even above expectations, I think. And then this move really does give you even more excitement going forward. I think I'm with you. It is a legit time to be thinking Super Bowl, Phil.
It's got to be. I think John is, or he would not. You don't trade a fourth and a fifth for a half-year rental that you may or may not be able to sign unless you believe you've got a team that can get to the Super Bowl. And John's a smart football guy. Last I checked. And so if he thinks we've got a shot, we've got a really good shot of making the Super Bowl, Adam. So it kind of seems like with that, there's just one thing left to say.
Actually, we're going to have two things because the Snail gifted 5 Seahawks podcast memberships right as we were getting ready to wrap up the show.
More things left to say.
That's right, which is amazing. Thank you, Snail. That is super cool to be considered to get the free gifted membership. Look it up. It's a process, and I didn't have time to look it up, and I just don't care. But there is a way to do it. I think it's something about receiving gifted things in your YouTube, making comments and stuff or whatever. The YouTube figures it out. If you do, think about gifting more memberships and moving things forward, much like this team is moving forward, Phil, on its march to the Super Bowl. And so this time, I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say, Adam.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. On our way.